Welcome back to another episode of the Autonomy Pods podcast, and this one is again another solo from me. This is about why aesthetics goals won't last. Now, when you initially start a journey of something like going to the gym, it's highly frequently common that you will be doing this because you are wanting to change the way that you look for whatever particular reason that will be. Now, the longevity game is slightly different to the game of like looking and feeling better. And what gets you down towards the goals that you have might not keep you in shape for the longest time and be the most effective and efficient way to do this over the long term. So what I mean by this is there's a sort of transition that will need to happen at some point when you take your emphasis off yourself and more into performance or skill related goals. Now, with aesthetics, it can be whether you're, let's say, for example, if you have an attachment to the scale with a specific number or a particular way that you like to look. Now, eventually, life gets in the way, and there will be periods of the year when you don't look a particular way that you want to. And it's really common for people that are super highly aesthetically or physically dominated in terms of their goals will lose motivation, will lose drive, will lose the reasoning to do the things that they've done before. So whether that is look after their nutrition because they think, oh, well, I'm not in the shape that I want to, so fuck it. There's a minutia of people that will think, oh, fuck, I'm not in that shape. I need to get back to it. And then you'll go into the gym demotivated because you don't look the way that you like to look. And aesthetically, that's what keeps driving you going and whatnot. And definitely in like building phases or lifestyle phases, you see that people that who are predominantly focused on their physique or the way that they look as their primary focus will lose motivation. They won't really know where and why they're doing what they're doing because they get to the point where they've achieved the goal that they've got. 90% of the general population will only ever think about losing weight. They won't have that drive to like be 10 kilos heavy with lots and lots of muscle. Most of that is just down to personal trainers or people that really take this thing seriously that want to accumulate a high level of muscle tissue. Most people, Gen Pop, will want to lose body fat and just be able to see the dick again, or be able to be more confident, or be able to just fit into a medium t-shirt and it to look good. And when that happens, then those aesthetic goals are potentially achieved. But once you've achieved aesthetic goals to then that sort of degree, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you doing the things that have got you to that position? There'll be an element of that you can utilize fear. So I had a conversation with someone yesterday and they were like, I need the fear of a coach back because that fear makes me do the stuff I need to do. And whilst that might work for that individual, I really don't like the idea of fear being something that is a driver. If you've done a fat loss phase, you've been driven by a negative emotion. There's a negative emotion to putting on a large t-shirt or an extra large t-shirt and feeling shit in it. There's a negative emotion around being insecure and having low self-esteem because of the way that you look. And that's what makes that change, or that's what starts the ignition to the motivation to then drive that particular action, whether that's starting a fat loss phase or drinking more water or looking into doing more fitness stuff. But that's the trigger. And I don't really agree that that should be the thing that fuels you for 20 to 30 years of your lifestyle. And like it'll fuel you to stay, quote unquote, stay in shape because you're fearful of what will happen if you let it go. Because that's a negative emotion, and you don't always want to be driven by negatives. Like, why can't we have positive triggers that keep us in shape? Why can't we have positive things that allow us to do these things? Whereas if the only things that are keeping us in shape is fear and like the concern of going backwards, then are we really in a state of proactivity? We're really in a state of happiness. Are we really in a state of like contentment? And there will need to be this element to be continually okay with the way that you look and be able to move forwards. There's a position I always speak about within the podcasts and with clients is that, you want to go from this negative emotion of this fat loss phase into the positive emotion of a lifestyle. Why do I want to do this? Well, the positives of my lifestyle give me this benefit, this benefit, this benefit, or training gives me this benefit, and this benefit. And you start building up the pros to these things, not the risk of cons. And I think they're two completely different lifestyles. They're two different, completely different mindsets that come from these particular outcomes. But anyway, you don't want there to be a fear-based mentality to the rest of your life when it comes to body composition. But that means that there needs to be something that you go forwards with. And you need that positive, you need that push, drive, and excellence going forwards instead of it always being that fear nature. Now, with this aesthetic goals, the crux of things are that unless you're on anabolic steroids, the ability to grow muscle tissue will take a very long time. So the short-term gratification of why you train will be reduced compared to the fat loss phase. If you lose 2 kilos or you lose 3 kilos, you start to see more definition. You start to see more veins that you've never seen before, little lines coming in different areas, feeling better in your clothes. Whereas when the aesthetics are the goal for a muscle building phase, or in the lifestyle of just like trying to get a little bit bigger, that is going to take 6 months to a year to see any type of gain, which means that there's a higher probability chance over the 6 months of the year that you're quote unquote gaining muscle, that you'll lose motivation, you'll lose the will to train, you'll have dips and you'll have peaks and you'll have troughs, and you'll be lost in what to focus on because the main driver that you have, you won't be satisfying that need to get because you won't be getting it. You won't be getting muscle every single week or every 3 months. You won't be seeing new muscle tissue grow. You'll just see small increments over a long period of time, which then leads me to my point of, if we're trying to formulate something forever, if we're trying to get this lifestyle, this like quote unquote autonomy with your health and fitness for the uber long term, the 10, the 15, the 20 years of your life, don't you need something that gives you benefit on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? And waiting for that 6 months to happen for the aesthetics to look better is a losing game, because that long-term gratification is something that will create loads of peaks and troughs in between that 6-month period and year period. However, what people do who stay in shape longer term, and the research is really clear on this, is that they have interim performance goals. They have skill-related goals, and they have goals, this is the most important part, they have goals that are not about their physical shape. They're not about the visual side of things. Because once you take the visual thing out of it, it becomes less about you and becomes more about your effort levels, and it becomes more about something more tangible, as opposed to a way of look that you set yourself in the mirror one day and you look a certain way and you're like, yes, I've done well today. And then tomorrow you look a completely different way, or you look in the mirror at 6 a.m. versus 9 p.m. and you see a different person completely. And that's generally how bodies go. We look completely different at every part of the time. Whereas with the performance goals and the skill related goals, there's that tangibility to chase something and get those short-term and long-term feedback mechanisms to say, I'm doing a good job here, or I'm succeeding, or I need to practice this more. And that then gives you this goal, this drive, and then gives you this positive outcome. Because hopefully what you can see is that when you drive with aesthetics and you're like waiting for stuff to happen, whether it's from a visual perspective, it's so subjective. You look in the mirror one day, like I just said now, you look in the mirror in the morning, you look in the mirror in the evening, you're completely different people. And depending on what your perception is of yourself, that could send you down a spiral. Whereas performance goals and skill related goals are pretty black and blue, or black and white, black and blue, is that you either don't do the skill or you don't do the skill, or you either win or you lose, or you achieve your PB or you don't, or you hit 8 reps, or you hit 7, or you hit 6. And that tangibility allows for lots more positive performance and outcomes over the short and the long term. Now, a lot of people get bogged down in that. A lot of online coaches and a lot of PTs, which I'm definitely against now, is that they always think, oh, a client should do a resistance training. They should do long-term muscle building. They should go and do lots of powerlifting and strongman lifting, and like chase like getting stronger within the gym, which is all fine and dandy, but that is just one method to a performance and skill-based goal. I think it's our job as online coaches and just general coaches in general, sorry, drop my vape, is that you want to try and get something that your client will do over the long term that they will enjoy, that has a performance or a skill-based element. Now, the reason why online coaches and PTs discourage you from doing other things like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, gymnastics, yoga, playing football twice a week or 3 times a week is because it detracts from their service. It detracts from what they can offer you, and there's a higher probability if you're spending half your week with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you're only using them for nutrition that you may see less value within their service. So when people are like, "Oh, you must resistance train, or it's going to be amazing for you, it's the best thing for you for the long term," they're missing that. You have to put that type of caveat on top of it. Because what we know in the future and what we know in the long-term things and what we know from people that are 40, 50, 60 and 70, it's not exactly the type of exercise that people do. It's just that they do something on a consistent basis. The people that do Zumba twice a week at 70 have better outcomes than those that are 70 that sit on their arse all day. But Zumba's not optimal. But Zumba keeps people moving and it keeps people active and it keeps them in a social group and it keeps them listening to music and traveling outside of the house and all of these variables that come from what we need to focus on when you're 70 years old and you're potentially isolated and occluded and, having some degeneration issues. So we have to think about, when you're in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s and your 60s and your 70s, is that what can you do to stay active, and what do you enjoy to do what do you enjoy to do, and then how do you make that something that you can see progress within? And over your 30s, your 40s, your 50s and 60s and your 70s, these factors will change. Maybe your 30s are you spending in the gym. Then when you get to the end of the 30s, you're like, well, fuck this, I'm going to the gym on my own, I'm bored. Maybe I'll try some CrossFit. And CrossFit has that technical ability, it has the skill, it has the group element, which is great. Then maybe you're like, oh no, like a couple of years later, you're like, oh, fuck CrossFit, like it's too expensive, or, I just don't want to eat the paleo diet or whatever they do. And then you try something like gymnastics and adult gymnastics or calisthenics, and you try that for a bit and you really enjoy it. And the key fundamental for, what we try and give for autonomy clients to leave with quote unquote autonomy is that they should be trying every type of exercise method that they can. If they don't enjoy the gym, they need to find something that they enjoy, at least for the interim, so that they can start on this quest for themselves to go and try different things. It's a really common path for particularly females who don't enjoy the gym because of the environment that it is, or they've never had a great association with it, or they just don't like lifting weights because they don't enjoy the challenge of those type of exercises, which is totally normal, to then go and do group classes and completely love the group class element. They like the fact that they're listening to music, they're with friends, they're moving their bodies, they're progressing in the way that they want to with the plates that they've got. And that becomes a very useful method for those people. Then there'll be this other portion of females that will go from resistance training when they don't like it to more of a skill-based element. So either that gymnastics, yoga, or Pilates. And they'll enjoy getting better at those skills on a week-to-week basis and practicing those elements. There's a period in my time, and I still, I'm going back to it when I get back to Dubai, is that I'm going to go back to like adult gymnastics and learning some more hand balancing stuff again. Because there was nothing real ever like practicing a skill over and over and over again whilst getting fit, because you're working the whole of your body in some of these movements. And then you finally achieve that specific skill. The rush, the jubilation, I've never got that from lifting a PB in the gym. I've hit, 100 kilo overhead press for 3 reps. And the jubilation I got from hitting a planche, a tuck planche up to handstand, then back down to tuck planche again in my mum and dad's back garden during COVID was the best feeling that I've had in such a long time. Or hitting a, hitting a birdie on a golf course. That gave me way more jubilation than it did lifting weights in the gym. And the thing is that all 3 of those things are actual exercise, whether like the degree that you can argue going to the golf course, whatever, but you still have to walk around 18 holes and you still have to swing a club and you still have to go and practice a couple of times a week. There's still exercise. So you need to find something that you find jubilation in when you achieve those things. So if you are a skill-based individual, or equally if you don't know what you are, because you haven't tried all of these things. Maybe you only got into exercise in your 30s because you had a health condition and the rest of the time you were a nerd, or you were sitting by computers, or you were in the corporate world, or you just didn't really enjoy exercise when you were younger. It's your job to go and find out and try all these different ones that will require some level of performance, like going towards a performance. So like, um, I'm going to go and try and do 6 of these, or I'm going to try and get this ball in this hole, or I'm going to try and do 6 lengths as fast as I can, or whatever in swimming. And then you try some skill based stuff, which is like, I'm going to try and do hand balances. I'm going to try and learn this pose in yoga. I'm going to learn how to swing the golf course, swing the golf club, and practice that and perfect that. Like, there's always this skill and performance element that will always come to betterment of your lifestyle. It's very, very common for people like you look at golf, for example. Those people that spend 10 to 15 years mastering those skills are also relatively fit because they have to walk around the golf course to create those skills. And those that get better with the skills in Pilates and yoga have gone for 2 to 3 times a week, every single week, to learn those skills. So there's this thing that kind of works together that has nothing to do with aesthetics, nothing to do with the way that they look, but actually it's about exercise that gives you performance and skill based goals. And once you can provide and get these skill based goals and performance based goals, it's the longevity of those things that really matter. If you're trying to master a skill like a golf swing, it could take you 15 to 20 years to master a golf swing. Like, I tried for a year and got half decent, or I could go around an 18 hole course without losing a ball. That was my idea of good. And one time I hit a birdie off a 200-yard starting position. I don't know what that's called. And that was like the jubilation of my life. Like, one of the best moments. I remember jumping for joy and hugging K-Mac when we were at the golf course together. And it completely made my week, and near enough, like during COVID, one of the most memorable parts was moving into a flat and getting a dog, and the other one was hitting a birdie on a golf course on a par four. And those skill based stuff can keep you going back and back and back. The yoga side of things, the Pilates, even the classes, right? Because the classes are still a skill. Like, you have to learn these moves and you have to learn these requirements to do body pump, and over time you get better at body pump, and then they change the routines, and then you learn those routines again, and then you get better with those routines and you get more fluid. And whilst you're getting more fluid with the skill of the routine, you're getting fit at the same time, or you're exercising your body. So hopefully you can see that there's this element of like skill development that allows people to play the long game, because for not everybody will resonate with the performance goals of lifting weights in the gym or what that entails. Like, for most people, a bench press is a bench press, which is a means to build your chest. But for some, a bench press is like the strength marker that is wrapped up in what they want to perform. It's like their movement that they want to get super, super strong. And for others, it'll be how to hold a frog stance or frog balance. But as online coaches and as I spoke about before, the PT world, they're going to try and convince you that you need to do resistance training, because that you will then not devalue their service. Now, they're obviously and then we speak about all of these exercise methods in general. So the skill-based stuff, the performance-based stuff, they all have particular benefits. So like, if you look at, a foundational layer, they're all exercise, they're all movements. But then you're like, okay, resistance training builds your muscle, so it makes you stronger. And golf, doesn't really do that. It's not a resistance-based program. It's like, yeah, so then that becomes the minutia of like what each one gives you as a benefit compared to the others. So sure, resistance training for the next 20 years of your life will make your joints strong, your muscles strong, reduce the risk of falls, cardiovascularly you'll be fitter, and that'll be great because that's the benefit of resistance training, and they reduce the risk of various different things, joint issues and pain and whatnot. And at the same time, if you look at the positives of golf, is that you're just being active in terms of your lower body, you're walking around, you're swinging your torso, you're still getting some force through the body, which is going to create muscles to work, but you're not progressively overloading and then creating more bigger muscles because of that adaptation, but it's still providing a stimulus to those muscles. So whilst the difference really between golf and then resistance training is the ability for the resistance training to progress your strength over time, That's the major crux of things, and being more targeted towards what muscles you want to get stronger. The element of golf or swimming or Pilates gives you specific or more general exercise as opposed to the specifics that you can get from going to do a specific machine in the gym that works a specific muscle group. So when you're deciding, when you're looking at the long term, bring it back to that performance element and that skill based element. I rarely see people who have this goal of aesthetics. So I want to get bigger chest, I want to get bigger back, I want to get bigger arms, who are general population who it isn't their life to look bigger. They still, even if it is the personal trainers, even if it is the people that compete on stage, they still have performance goals interim between these aesthetic goals. So, him is someone that you obviously on the coaching team with Autonomy, you look at, and he's obviously building a massive, a great physique. Last 2 years, he's a middleweight champion now. Last 2 years, he's grown so much as a natural bodybuilder. But he didn't just focus on the aesthetics between the 2 years. He was like, I want to get bigger, but I know that if I want to get bigger, then my lifts have to go up. So then he started looking at the lifts and the ability to progress those lifts, which is back to being performance goals again. So even if you do have the priority as aesthetic goals, they don't just last on their own, and they just don't happen on their own. So you need to break down into performance goals anyway. And maybe you even need to break them down into skill goals anyway. Because if you want to increase your chest, you're going to need to do these 3 to 5 exercises. Let's say, for example, flat bench, incline bench, dumbbell press, cable press, maybe a cable fly. Let's say, for example, that's the 5 holy grail, which it's not, but let's say it's the holy grail of chest press and chest development. You're going to need to get better at those exercises from a skill perspective, perform them well, perform in the right manner. Your technique needs to be better as your weight goes up on them. And then you also need performance goals on the other side of it, where you're actually achieving set targets that you're then chipping away and getting stronger over time. So in a way, aesthetic goals can be that thing of like, in 2 years, I want to do this, but you won't achieve them if you don't have performance and skill related goals intertwined. There'll be people that are of that nature where they're like, I want to have that visual improvement, that will need to do all of those 3 things. But I'm speaking more to the general pop now who, just want to feel a bit better. They want to look a bit better. They want to keep motivated so that they can go late, like for the long term, and do some exercise in the long term. They either need to get really attached to that aesthetic goals and then set those performance goals and skill goals within those resistance training sessions, or if you're not too intertwined within the resistance training, you need to find other things that you're going to be able to satisfy your need to be able to have a positive outcome with exercise. Like I spoke about before, you don't want that fear nature of like, oh, I have to go to the gym because if I don't, I'm going to get fat. That's a negative mindset, and it's something negative that will create fear, which is not something just great to live with on a day-to-day basis. We want to try and make it as much positive as possible. So if you can say to yourself, oh, I'm going to go and do swimming because it makes me have my time in the morning to myself. I get to go into the water, which makes me feel fresh and refreshed. I get to move my body and exercise. It makes me feel great. It challenges me to kind of get stronger, get faster, get quicker. It keeps my mind sharp. It gives me my me time. These are all positives of why you would go swimming. And by virtue of you having all of those benefits, by setting those performance goals or getting better at swimming and front crawl and getting the skill element better, you then get the calorie burning, then get the resistance training within the swimming, which is then going to take care of your body composition and your aesthetics too. So instead of going, I have to do this because if I don't do this, I'm going to not be in shape. You flip that to say, what can I do that I love doing that has a huge benefit to me, that I will want to do for the long term, that I can try out, that can give me the same benefits without it being fear based. And a lot of people do go to the gym, in your 30s or your 40s because they feel like they have to, not because they want to. And I think overall that mindset needs to change before you even think about aesthetics or performance related goals or skill related goals. Pause it because the water meter guy was here, and then the cat came in, which is not even my cat. It's just a stray cat that likes to come into my house, and I feed it, so it keeps coming back. So that's going to be gutted to see and lose when I move to Dubai. Well, move back to Dubai on Monday. But I hope you can see from the element of how I've explained it here that whilst exercise is exercise, and you could be fearful, so therefore you go and do it. In order to create a long-term relationship with exercise, you have to find out the benefits of what you're going to get from it, want those benefits, and then go and seek them out and use it as a responsibility. You have an opportunity to do something that will enrich your life on so many different levels. Why wouldn't you use it? But people get bogged down by the actual exercise that they have to do, or the mode of exercise. But the long-term game is just movement. The long-term game is doing something. So if you have to spend the next 2 to 3 years going to do different classes, different level types of exercise, investing in a coach in golf, or finding a swimming coach if you've never learned swimming before, and try all these different things until you find something that sticks for a long period of time. And then inevitably you'll move between them anyway. I know people that are now 50 years old that did weights until they were like 23, 25, 26. Then they did bloody CrossFit for 3 or 4 years. Then they did golf for a little bit. Then they learned tennis for a bit. Then they did swimming. And they did all these different things. And they're the people that are the healthiest because they've tried so many different things and they're just keeping their body moving by doing different things. And whilst doing all those things, they may have hit like the gym once or twice a week instead of going to the swimming sessions. And they're just keeping themselves motivated by working towards specific skill or performance related goals, whether they know it that they're doing it like that or not. For those people that are not in that mode at the moment in time, we always have to take that conscious approach as opposed to subconscious. Some people are lucky enough to just do these things by nature. Some people are lucky enough to develop a routine without even having to told to be do one. Some people question their own thoughts before they consciously have to. So therefore, they already know how to do those particular things from a mental health perspective. And some people are just really lucky and they've been brought up to do certain things that has helped them in the future. But for us guys, and I call myself as part of this crew too, who grew up with not particularly great healthy relationships with food and exercise and fitness, that we have to retrain ourselves consciously to do these specific points. So if you're currently hating the gym, firstly invest in the skill and the performance element of the gym and do it out of love instead of fear. And if that works, then continue doing that, set goals, set PBs, work towards some specific metrics that you want to work towards and really go and attack it and get the fruit to the labor, get bigger, get stronger, get faster, get more nimble, and get the benefits mentally from those exercise sessions and performance sessions. And then if you don't like resistance training and you still can't leverage that performance goal of trying to get stronger and kind of get, aesthetically get better, then you have to start doing, you realize that that's a sinking ship and that's not going to work for you at this moment in time. And maybe in another 10 years, you might come back to exercise from a resistance training perspective or gym perspective, because it might work for you in 10 years time, or you might attain to it more. But for now, you need to find something that you will do that will lighten that fire inside of you from a skill and performance element basis, and just try a multitude of different things. One thing I was lucky enough to do when I was younger is that I played every sport underneath the sun. My weekly schedule when I was like 11 or 10 was gymnastics on a Monday, football on a Tuesday, gymnastics on a Wednesday, football on a Thursday, swimming on a Friday. Saturday was football and gymnastics, and then Sunday was like table tennis and like walking. And I used to do these things, and over the 3 months and 6 months time, my parents used to rotate different things. So I'd go and do I did ballet for like 6 months. I did like gymnastics for a couple of years, football, basketball, hockey, cricket, all of these things dependent on the weather, dependent on the season. I was doing all these different things to find what I like to do. And that's why, now I can kind of pick up a racket and play any sport or go to any sport and kind of be part of it and get that competitive edge to it, without my knee hurting, but that's a different story. But I was able to have that, but people need to do that now with exercise because they didn't do that when they were younger. South Asian individuals didn't play sport when they were younger to any degree or any high degree, maybe football, but they didn't do a multitude of different sports. But if your goal is to do something till you're 50, 60, and 70 and stay in the best possible physical health, a healthy shape, you're gonna have to find something that you enjoy doing, a martial art, a CrossFit, a yoga, or a resistance training, a swimming, golfing, and you could do a couple of these a week. For there's no rules around it. You could do Brazilian jiu-jitsu twice a week, or karate, or you could do swimming once a week on a Friday, and you could do two resistance training and then two badminton sessions. Whatever you want to do to keep your body moving, to keep you motivated, is going to be key. So think about it that way. The long-term approach to exercise is that you just fucking move. Whatever you do, just move and enjoy it whilst you're moving, and try and learn a skill and try and get better at it. And then once you do those variables, you won't have an issue staying in physical, healthy shape for the long term. Now, whether you stay in aesthetic shape will be relative to how much food you eat and the ability for you to control social situations, calories, and adherence. But from a physical shape perspective, underneath the layers of fat, you'll be able to say that you're in the best possible position. Have a lovely week, guys, and chat soon.